The podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
Good evening, and tonight we're discussing Stephen King's It, Part 4, part titled July 1958, chapter number 18, Bullseye. This chapter was 37 pages long and 3.39% of the book. This was a long one. There's a lot to break down on this one. So I'm going to start with Luke. What was your first note on this section?
Yes.
On section 1.
So in section 1, I think there's a lot of interesting things throughout all of these sections, and I didn't take notes on all of them, so I'm sorry if I bleed through and talk about the wrong things here and there, but I believe the line where old Bill is talking about, if we just went ahead and were able to kill the thing that killed Georgie, then my parents would have to love me again. He stutters and can't finish that statement himself, but Bev finishes it for him, and it's just one of those, since chapter 1 of the book, this has been Bill's thing, right? And the separation and isolation from his own family just always sucks to hear about, you know?
No, absolutely great. And I do like how Bev kind of stepped in for him because they all kind of know what he's talking about. And actually, it comes up a bit later in this chapter where we actually finally see what Bill and everybody's been talking about with his parents. But yeah, in this section, it's the older the older six, I'm sorry, finishing up the stories, and it's now Ben's turn to kind of go into the ball bearings and everything. He does tell how his werewolf scars have suddenly reappeared. The Henry Bowers one was there, but the werewolf one popped up 2 days ago, or less than 2 days ago, because he showed his friend at the bar the scars before he left.
Can I just point out, like, that was 2 days ago. That was it. Like, yeah. I'm looking at my book. This much of the book ago was 2 days.
It's a pretty healthy chunk. And if you look in podcasting time, I feel like it's been about 2 years almost.
Year and a half.
Year and a half.
Yeah, still. Like,
for me, experiencing
ridiculous.
it for the first time, it's felt like it was forever ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good inch and a half of pages thick. 2 days, kids. I mean, granted with flashbacks, but like 2 days. That was kind of my only thought on this was, wow, that's a lot that happens in 2 days.
So yeah, it's 2 adult days, right? But we've covered almost the entirety of human existence in flashbacks. Quite literally.
Pretty much. Literally, it goes from that. The Ricky Lee thing started on page 67. This chapter starts on page 804.
Yeah.
So, well more than 700 pages. That's
I
all.
did like
That's
the callback to Ricky Lee. He was a character that I kind of enjoyed when we met him, and it's just a nice little thing that, hey, here's another character. If you remember him, shout out, because he has the other silver coins. And yeah, I'm looking at that as maybe you should have kept him.
You think?
Right.
I do.
Yeah, I did like the line in there that Eddie has of it was just pretty much the habit of believing that had kept Eddie alive when they were talking about the aspirator and everything too, kind of going back to last chapter. But yeah, he was just I like that feeling of his. It's like, that's all you have to do. If you believe, you will stay alive. And that's the main kind of part of it. That's one thing we've talked about, is the belief, the death, or is that the right answer kind of thing?
To quote my favorite Christmas movie, seeing isn't believing. Believing is seeing.
Fair.
I mean, it kind of fits here, right?
Like,
No, I'm trying to place the Christmas movie. That's where my hesitation's coming from.
Excellent. I'm not going to tell you. If you can't figure it out by the end of the episode, I will let you know then. Moving on.
All right. So let's move on to section 2.
I do have, one more quick thought, because we are finishing off the stories. They even say that. They're like, we have just one more, and it happens to be 2 minutes to midnight that they're starting this story. That's a very well, like, literary usage of, hey, 2 minutes to midnight. There's songs about it. It's a literary thing. And it's essentially like you're either going to hear late night music about 2 minutes to midnight or 4 a.m. It's a thing. It's out there. So it was just another nice thing that Stephen King worked in here to kind of pay homage to all of the other literature, because that's all he's done over and over and over. It's, dropping in these references and homages to all sorts of things, and that's just another nice little thing. And it's a little convenient that, hey, we have, oh wait, there's just one more story we have to talk about, and it's literally right before the end of 2 days since this all started, pretty much. So just another thing that I caught. And so shit's going down tomorrow in Grown Up World.
Yes. No, well said. So in section 2, we start jump back to 1958. Ben is reminiscing about the start of creating the silver slugs into ball bearings. They basically talk about how he thought they could be done, but it was just way easier at this point to just do the slugs, and it's less likely for a gun to jam or anything like that. There's a line in there, though, that Bill has. It says, Bill had insisted that Ben make the slugs, just as he continued to insist that Beverly would be the one carrying the bullseye. These things could have and had been discussed, but it was only 27 years later, telling the story, that Ben realized no one had even suggested that a silver bullet or slug might not stop a monster. They had the weight of what seemed like 1,000 horror movies on their side. So it kind of goes back to the Eddie line earlier of, it's that belief, that habit of believing, that's what you need. And I think that's a big overarching thought for this whole chapter is belief. It plays very much into the entire scene.
I agree that that's been almost the number one theme through the whole story. It's believing on a strong power side, which will come up in this chapter as well, or believing that you're too afraid to do something about it. And again, that's very, very much come to the head in this chapter of, if, and we'll get to it later on, but if they don't believe in something, then guess what? It's not going to work. It takes the group having that united front, that united thought that it's going to work to even have a chance.
Exactly. And so Bill and Richie head down to the Kitchener Metalworks spot, surprisingly owned by one of the descendants of the Kitchener Ironworks family. And Melissa, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so they go down to buy the molds and they had pulled all their money, right? I thought it was really quite brilliant to use the stutter to their advantage. Letting Bill's talk makes the adults so uncomfortable. So of course they have to just let it, just fine, kid, whatever. You're gonna, don't shoot your eye out,
I will give you anything you want. Please stop hurting me.
Stop talking.
Yeah.
With your voice. And the kids know that. So they're totally taking advantage. I really appreciate them using whatever skills are available to them.
Right. Exactly. And I do like the next part of that is I never thought about it, but Bill's completely right about adults wanting to know what kids are buying stuff for, unless it's like candy or soda or, pop guns or something like that. It's like, why do you need ball bearing molds? And then, like you said, Melissa, it works perfectly for Bill. Just what we need. Just
No.
you know what? Just don't. If you get hurt, don't blame me. All right. That's kind of
like if I walk down the hall of one of my schools and one of my kids stops me and, Miss Carly, I got to tell you, and they start talking and talking and talking, and you're like, okay, kid, I wasn't all right. Oh, that's great. And they just keep going. It's that same kind of idea of just, I don't want to hear it. Just stop. I'll give you whatever you want to stop talking right now. I love you. You're wonderful. This is not what I need to be doing. So I find that a lot with kids in general and just my own, this is what we have to get done. And nope, they've got a whole tangent.
Oh, absolutely. And one other thought I had was they had $10.58 or something along those lines. That they had pulled together, but they still only ended up buying 2 molds. It's maybe buy a third, It's just kind of one of those, because the way the mold sounds is a one-time use mold. It's not like a repeat.
Right, I think so. Because you have to
crack it open.
Crack it open, yeah, I know. Or buy several. They were cheap.
Yeah, exactly my point. It's you got $10 from everybody, maybe get a couple. Or, hey, go see if they got a Bullseye at the place and get a second one, just in case. But that's neither here nor there. Luke, you got anything else on this section?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thought to buy multiple, but they're already a little bit worried about this being suspicious, and like if they overdo it here, then maybe they don't even get them, right? I mean, if you're getting 2, not that they're necessarily thinking that, but if they would have said, okay, well, we'll take 10, that stands out a little bit more as something that's suspicious from this guy who was already like, you don't hang out in front of the store, you know, and
you both need haircuts.
You both need haircuts. Like, I don't know. I think they're better off just flying under the radar as much as they can with it, and reducing the risk of more questions. I agree from our side. Sure, it'd be awesome if they had a bunch more, because we know where that goes in this chapter.
Yeah. So one other line, just really before we get to the next section, I like Richie here. Yeah, Richie said and giggled. Let's hang around in front. Want to? We'll put up our collars and sneer people and let our hair grow out. Fuck you, said Bill. Yeah, just a good interaction. It's those lighthearted moments in the middle of these kind of real heavy chapters that we've been dealing with, especially the last 4 or 5 super heavy chapters. I like those moments of happiness. So we're going to move on to section 3, and this is Ben actually putting the molds together, putting his skills to use, and without really any knowledge of what he's doing, he just does it.
Okay, can I just jump in right
Go
here?
ahead.
Dude's using a blowtorch, right? Like, he's 11.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've been podcasting for so long that my second child is almost 11 at this point. I want y'all to picture my middle child using a blowtorch. Just take a minute. Picture that. I don't care what his skill set is versus what my daughter's skill set is. You tell me any 11-year-old these days would be like, oh yeah, I hooked up my dad's blowtorch and da-da-da. Boy, girl, I don't care. That is like not common anymore to just go use the tools. And man, she'd be in so much trouble.
Yeah, there actually is a line that, again, remind me this, or this is written back in 85, but he's like, kids today could just walk to the store and buy a blowtorch or this, that. This actually isn't even just a blowtorch. This is literally a propane tank with a hose attached to it with like a nozzle that he lit on fire, you know? So he had to like mock up a blowtorch.
They set me on fire.
You know, so I mean, another shout out to Ben for being able to figure out how to even do that. Because yeah, you get a blowtorch. I could see your middle one with a little handheld blowtorch, butane torch thing with prepper supervision.
Oh my god!
I believe in her.
She'd have fun. She'd have a blast with it.
Because she's a grown ass 11-year-old. God damn it!
She's a grown ass 11-year-old. God damn it! I believe in her.
So, but I do like in this section Ben having to tell Stan not to worry because he's the one that was standing next to him on his other side when Bev was on his left, even though he wanted to tell Bev, but he's like, I can't because I can't even speak to her at the moment. But also I don't want her, you know, yelling at me for thinking you're worrying because you're a girl and all that kind of thing. And so he's like, don't worry. And Stan's like, I'm fucking not. I'm good. just go on. But it was just nice fun, that section.
No, I thought it was interesting that he was able to just go into this mechanical surgery mode that he does. And yeah, sure, it stretches the belief a little bit, but we've got shit that turns into monsters all the time. So I'll suspend that disbelief and just be okay with it.
Speaking of suspended belief, there's one line that really stood out to me at the end of this particular section. It says, for one moment, he did not feel like plain old fat Ben Hanscom, who wore sweatshirts to disguise his gut and his tits. He felt like Thor, working thunder and lightning at the smithy of the gods. That's right. Be Thor. He's got beautiful hair.
I knew that one would stand out to you.
I know,
as soon as I
right?
heard it, I'm like, oh, Melissa's going to make a note on that, as
That's
she
right.
should.
Because Marvel is amazing. And so are the Norse gods of whatever. So blah, blah, blah.
My only other note is, of course, they're turtle glasses that just happen to be what Bill brought to protect Ben's eyes. You know, they were the turtle sunglasses.
Gotta drop the turtle reference at some point, right?
Yeah. All right. So next section, we have them wrapping up. Basically, the molds are poured in. They're just letting them rest to harden up. And they start heading back in to play some Monopoly. But Ben has kind of a fleeting moment of hesitation. Luke, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so he has this kind of fantasy about, you know, if Al Marsh would show up and was all pissy and overprotective,
Al Marsh-ish.
weird, creepish father that he is. And, you know, in Ben's head, he stands up for Bev and gets the job done. They kiss on the mouth, which was something. But I don't know. every time we see, and I think they even mention it here, I'll see if I can find the line real quick. It's talking about whenever you get Ben all riled up, he turns into some kind of tiger. What do they say? What does he say?
I have the section here, and I got it here. Hanscom, usually a quiet, bookish type, can be a ravening tiger when you get him mad. He speaks to Al March with great sincerity. If you want to get to her, you'll have to get through me first.
And we've seen that a couple times when he bull rushed the bullies, and I mean, when he gets that full head of steam, yeah, I mean, they always look at his weight as a detriment, but that does play a big part of some of the strength that he can bring to an actual physical interaction, that momentum he can bring to a fight. It's not nothing.
Yeah, he definitely is the juggernaut in fucking my favorite Marvel franchise. You get him going, he ain't stopping. So, yeah, also in this section, I believe that's the next section. So it's just the daydream section for this. Melissa, did you have anything on the daydream?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really either. It was a cute scene. I know exactly where Ben's head's at. I've been there as an 11-year-old. You have that fancy. Hell, I've been there a year ago with the $1 billion Powerball. It's like you just stop, you catch yourself. Like, I've been literally daydreaming about this for like too long. I need to just move on. So I can definitely understand where he's coming from. So the next section is the phone call between Beverly and her mother. She basically tells her that she's at the community center, that Bill's dad will be driving her home, and says, "Oh, no, it's not a date. There's many people here," blah, 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 basically lying to her mom. Melissa, we have similar notes. I'll let you kind of go with it.
So I think it's really interesting. So the mom says, "Oh, your dad would be upset if he found out she was dating," right? Oh, your dad. Does the mom not care? Like, does she not have, does she not have an opinion? Or is she not allowed? No, not that. Or is she not allowed to have an opinion? Like, it doesn't matter what I think because your father's opinion is like what we all have to sort of live with. Or would she only be upset if her husband was upset? But if her husband was cool and she wouldn't care? I don't know. I find that interesting to sort of think about how does Mrs. Marsh and how do her opinions don't factor in even in her own consideration.
Luke.
Go for it.
Oh, well, no, I completely agree with it. I had the same note. Your dad would be mad. I would too. She says it's pretty much as a secondary thought. I personally don't think Mrs. Marsh really wouldn't be mad. She doesn't care. It's not that she doesn't care about Beverly. She doesn't care. She knows girls will be girls. She'll be fine. She's more concerned about the father's reaction to finding out Beverly was, with a bunch of boys and all that kind of thing. She's more scared for her daughter's safety, at least the way I read it, over anything else.
I agree. I think the only thing the mom cares about is I don't even think it's about her daughter's safety. I think it's about not making the dad mad. Like, she's so used to tiptoeing around the dad. I just don't know if she has any opinion one way or another about Bev because she doesn't ever get to have an opinion. So she probably has never thought about it. I don't know. I mean, it's all about the dad, right? Yeah. It's very frustrating to see women like that who are married and just so the word, like, I don't know what the word is. They're just
ingrained. It is ingrained, and she has been trained to live in the universe that is Al Marsh. And I think that is at the forefront of her thought of, one, protect Bevy, because she does care about her. She doesn't necessarily care if she's hanging out with boys or anything.
But only to protect her from the dad.
Exactly. I think so. But I think also to protect herself, because guess what? If Al found out that Mrs. Marsh knew something and didn't tell her, there's no doubt in my mind that she would get her ass beat too. And that's fucked up. I hate that so much. And just that I think it's really interesting that you can pull so much from that one hesitant, quick line that tells so much about their marital relationship that we haven't gotten a ton of before, other than her tiptoeing around what does Al think, and there's just another really quick confirmation that, it sucks living in the Marsh house.
Yeah.
And what a great parallel for when Beverly is an adult, because it's the exact same scenario. Mm-hmm. So you hear people say like the way you raise your kids and what an impact that can make, because that's the kind of relationship Beverly saw growing up. That's the kind of relationship Beverly had.
Yeah, because it was normalized for her. That's what
Mhm.
a normal family does.
And,
one way or
that's
the
how
other.
men take care of their women.
Yeah. And what I just wanted to clarify, when I said she's concerned about Beverly's safety, I meant safety from Al, not like
Yes.
safety.
Yeah,
in
Yes.
general.
that's how I
Oh
took
no,
it.
totally took it
Just
that
making
way.
sure. Okay, because so the
This time we agree with you.
I know. I was just
3
making
for
sure,
3. We're doing a great job, guys.
making sure I clarified my statement.
Yeah,
So,
we're on section 5 and haven't argued yet. I think we're
I
doing
know.
good.
Yeah. Well, this is a heavy episode that I think there's
We'll
not
get
much,
there.
I don't think there's a lot to get to, like a lot of argument. I think we're all a lot on the same page.
I don't know. I feel like I have to argue with you about that.
But
I'm just kidding.
I know. So we end up finishing up the scene where they finish a game of Monopoly and Stan wins.
And ironically, Ben loses.
And Ben loses. Yeah.
I find that funny because Ben ends up being the richest of them all.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it has a great line of, from Stan, Jews really are very good at making money. It's just deadpan and everybody cracks up about it. It is funny, especially when you can call out your, for lack of a better term, loser-ish to make everything lighthearted. And I'm not saying being a Jew is loser-ish. It's just that their feeling on it.
It's the same idea of using the stutter to their advantage.
Exactly.
It's one of his stamps on being in the losers club. I mean, that's one of his couple things. And Ben follows that up with, Jesus, make me Jewish, which was a pretty funny backup line too. So
right. So, all right, guys, anything else on the phone call?
Okay. No, just more of the same.
Gotcha. All right, so we're going to move on to section 6, which is they cracked open the ball bearing molds and they had a discussion. Beverly did not want to hold on to them. She didn't trust herself with that such responsibility, so she made Bill hold on to them. Also, Bill's mother comes home, or mother and father come home early, and they the other kids go home with Bill's father. And we'll get to that part in a second. I'll let you guys kind of talk about the first half of it if you had anything.
All right. So the slugs are finished and they crack them open or whatever. And Mike has the line that says that he thinks the slugs look powerful. And then, standing in their power circle or whatever, they pass the slugs around. Every single one of them holds it. I was just wondering as I was reading this, it struck me, do you think by each of them holding the slugs for even a moment, does that add to the power of the slugs? That the slugs in that moment get a bit of power from each of the losers. Was it imbibed by them? It's a good possibility.
I will say that I don't think so. Anything other than I'm a roundabout way agreeing with you, just in a different way. I don't think
here we go.
They added anything to the ball bearing. I think the ball bearing added to their belief in it. They all touched it and could feel how heavy and powerful it was. And it was the belief in that made it even possible to do any damage to Pennywise later on. And again, we'll kind of open that up more towards the end of the chapter when we actually see it in use. But if they all don't get their hands on it for a second, someone could waver in their belief that it could work.
So it goes back to my phrase, believing is seeing.
Yes, that's the side. That's the part that I agreed with, as opposed to some magical
actual transference of the power.
Well,
okay.
And now, really quick, Luke, I will have kind of a counterpoint to that, where it's possible, because if you look at the line of what Mrs. Denbrough, when she came in, she said there's a feeling of static electricity came from the group, so powerful she felt like if she touched one, she'd get a jolt from it. So that concentration of electricity being silver is a conductor of electricity, not as well as others, but it does conduct electricity, that they could have imbibed some of that electrical power into the ball bearing itself. I know it's a stretch, but it was a line I had noted down, and I was like thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? Thinking about it, it's possible that, they did actually transfer some of that energy into there.
And that's not the first time we've seen anything said about these kids together like that. This is the second or third time we've had some of the parents being afraid of seeing these kids together, seeing that there's something more to this group, or even just a couple here and there, together. I think I don't know if it was Ben's mom or if it was...
I think it was Eddie's.
Eddie's mom.
Last episode, when they were all together, she could feel like it was coming from Eddie, like the power, but
okay,
like that spark.
There was one I agree. I think there may have been another instance even before that too. But
Okay.
either way, yes, there is true magic going on. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it gets to the same thing, at least from what I've read.
Because it's the magic that they have their belief,
Right,
and that
that's-
belief gives them the power.
To me, that's what I'm
I don't
pulling out as the core of what I've seen, at least. But
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along. You could be right.
the magic is real. Is whenever I read that again in the dedication of this book, it completely. I stopped trying to figure out what things are necessarily because it's just it's magic.
Exactly. So going back to that section as well, with right after they pass it around, Beverly not wanting to hang on to the ball bearings because she's afraid her parent / father would find him, even though she has a hiding spot that he hasn't found yet. But this is such an important item. She does not trust herself with this level of, I don't know the term, I guess.
Responsibility.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Because she even points to that's the thing that she notices about Bill and is his, and that may be in a later section, but she specifically brings out like she noticed his responsibility and never would have before that time realized what that meant.
No, agreed. All right. And I have a note here, but I can't remember what the context of it was.
Just read it and we'll figure it out together.
So I think there's more to it than being powerless, almost to the point of something else guiding them at this point, and Bill's mother can feel it. It's kind of going back to the Bill's mom feeling that electricity. It's more so, I know what it was. It was actually in response to Melissa's note.
Which I just deleted because I didn't want to talk about that.
Oh, fair enough.
I let it go.
Fair enough. Okay. So
I mean, I can bring it back if you're. It was just the idea that there's a line in here. Here we go. See, you're winning. Damn it. There's a line in here where she's feeling very like overwhelmed and back button so that my thing actually pops back up. So it's, do parents always feel so lost and powerless around their kids? Like all the losers' parents seem to. We got that from Sonia Kasbrak with Eddie's power in the last chapter, and just kind of in general. Sometimes the parents seem to be underwhelmed, or they're underwhelming because of the power we see from the kids. It was just something along those lines. And I was like, I don't ever feel like that around my kids and their friends. Like, man, they're going to take over the world and knock me over with it, which is kind of how I feel sometimes with like Miss Denbrough and Kasbrak and with some of these scenarios. Mm-hmm. There, no, I did it.
Thank you. And that does make absolute sense where you're coming from with it. And like I said, with mine, I don't know if it was, or it's more than just being powerless. It's almost to the point that she notices there's something more controlling this group. And it's now overtaken them beyond their parents' control or power. So that's all. All right, thank you for going back on that, because that would have really driven me nuts had I not remember what that was about.
Okay, but that's it. That's all I'm doing for you.
Appreciate
letting it go now.
All right, so section 7. Trying to do a quick reprieve. So this is the showing up.
Back at the house.
Yeah, to the house on Nebold Street. They arrive, and it's kind of agreed upon that they would. They all agreed we're going to go in and go for it.
And I think it's interesting because they get there and Bill's like, yeah, are you sure? Like, are you sure? Ben's the first one who says yes. Like, this whole chapter is sort of told from Ben's perspective and it jumps somewhat. But I really like that a lot of the time it's just Ben saying, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll take care of it. He's very much a driving force besides Bill, because it's always Bill, but a driving force in whatever. And my headphones are dying, so I'll switch it.
Definitely. So I wanted to kind of bring something up we had on last episode that we talked about, the bike riding of Richie riding on Silver. He rode up on Silver again, riding Devil with Bill. Bev rode up on her girl's Schwinn. So my thought process of Richie just being nice and letting Bev ride his bike, I was incorrect. Beverly does have her own bike. No idea where Richie's bike is. Just, it's gone. It's gone. So just wanted to bring that up. I noticed that when I was listening to 2 episodes ago with the Eddie Kasbrak break.
Well, they talk about it, though. I mean, as to why they never take his bike is because it's too small and it's too slow, that if they get into a pickle, they're better off getting on Silver, riding double on that. It's going to go faster and be safer. At least that's what it was the first time they went to Nebold Street together.
Yeah, but that was like 500 pages ago. Remember? Come on, man.
And
it's bike talk. I'm listening. I'm always here for bike talk.
And it's also okay. Screw the other ones in the group. Silver pace all y'all. So we don't have to be the fastest. We just gotta be faster than you. So
It's the slowest acceleration, highest top speed.
That's why I just volunteer to be like the sacrifice in a zombie apocalypse, so the rest of you can exist.
And those selfless intentions are what we love most about you, Melissa. That's why we keep you close.
But not too close.
No, just close enough.
Oh.
So my next note on this, it's kind of a whole section, but it starts up with they're talking about the adult or the bums living in the house, and basically Stan goes, they wouldn't see anything, they'd be safe, most of them anyway. Can any grown up see it? Do you think, Bill? I don't know. Said Bill. There must be some. I wish we could meet one. There's really isn't a job for kids, you know what I mean? Bill knew. Whenever the Hardy boys got into trouble, Fenton Hardy was around to bail them out. Same with Rick Brandt's dad, Harston, and the Rick Brandt science adventures. Shit, even Nancy Drew had her father who would show up in the nick of time if the bad guys tied her up and threw her into an abandoned mine or something. It's telling that, again, it's a lot of this book has been movie trope, like horror movie call outs to that. And like the negating of the movie of the B film movie tropes that they're trying to say, yeah, that happens in the movie. That doesn't happen in real life, but this is real life and this is still happening, but it's worse because the movies have these tropes. It's kind of the same thing where you're expecting as you're reading this, a parent's going to show up, an adult's going to be there. Hell, Mr. Nell will be there, but he's not, and so it's kind of one of those, yeah, the parents don't know, the adults don't know. And so this is why this has been a terrifying, story, because it's all kids.
And even if they did know, we've specifically seen that they can't see or do anything about it. Mm-hmm. Or they just fall in step next to it. We've seen that multiple times as well. Like with the Bradley gang, with all the shooting, and it was just like, oh, yeah, everyone saw it. It's fine though. Like they just fall in line together. Or they're incapable of seeing it and can't do anything about it. So it's even more dangerous feeling because of that.
Agreed. Melissa, you got another note in the section?
Yeah, I just really liked the idea that they were concerned about Eddie, with his broken arm and all that jazz. And they were like, can you do this? And he was like, sure, I can. I was alone last time. This time I have my friends. Mm-hmm. I liked that. That was adorable.
It's almost like having friends.
Almost, Luna. Almost.
So really quick, remind me, is this the section where they all puff on the aspirator too? Richie?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful, undercut scene, or that it's not... the miniseries plays it up well. I do like how the miniseries plays that one. But it's Richie's like, hey, let me hit that. And he's like, what? He's like, hey, I'm not joking around. It works for you. It might work for me. And they all kind of take it kind of as solidarity in line with Eddie. Like, hey, you need this, we need this, kind of thing.
Yeah, I take it as that, and also it's almost like one of these ritualistic things that they do every now and then that I really do think it increases their belief in them as a group. Because again, if one of them wavers at all, which we see in this section where Stan starts panicking, and Bill's like, oh, no. You need to knock that shit off right now, because guess what? If you're going to be the weak link here, it's literally going to take all of us out, kind of thing. And he jumps on it. Bill powers through his stutter, and then finally tells him to remember your birds, and forces him to remember it. And I think that kind of re-galvanizes Stan's trust that the group is going to be able to make it through this. Or at least to be able to make a difference one way or the other.
No, absolutely. That actually is this next section we're going into right now. So,
sorry.
Yep, you're good. It still works. It ties all together. Basically, the group crawl under the porch. Bill and Bev go down first. Then Ben slowly makes his way down with some unfortunate consequences. Followed by the rest. They help Eddie in. They end up getting early signs of it trying to scare them, of trying to ward them off it with different tombs or different techniques, but they overcome them. So, Melissa, I'll let you go with your first note on that.
So, I have a couple. I kind of wanted to riff on what Luke was talking about with Stan. So thinking about Stan and how he was kind of losing his mind. Yes, I like what you said, Luke, about Bill bringing it back, right? And being the person to bring Stan back. But I really focused on, and I don't disagree with you, I just focused on the Stan part of it, the fact that it was Stan. I used to really dislike Stan every time I would read this book. Stan just annoyed me. You know, he killed himself right away, and I couldn't appreciate somebody who did that, because why would you do that? And like, then as a kid, he just was a little quirky, and you don't get a lot of his perspective because he's not there as an adult to tell one of these stories from his perspective. So you just sort of miss out on a lot of connecting with Stan. But by slowing down, I really feel like I've understood him more this read through. And I think this moment really is a good indicator of why he couldn't come back as an adult, why he couldn't face coming back to Pennywise again, because it almost destroyed him here as a child. And he knew that it almost destroyed him as a child. Why would you willingly go back to that as an adult?
Yeah.
So it just made me more sympathetic to the Stan plight.
Agreed. And also thinking about it, we've discussed it too, that Stan might not have forgotten, you know, like the others did. We never get any knowledge of his interaction. I think I had the theory of Stan was the first one to get the call, so he remembered everything all up front and couldn't handle it. But I think this was a big factor into that, where he got all this knowledge and remembered this scene in particular and was like, nope. And that's why now whoever's guiding him, the turtle, after Stan did that, kind of slowed everything down for everybody else.
I still don't know if he remembered everything right at once. I think this shows it's just part of who he is in his core, that orderly and neat, and things need to be a certain way. And this doesn't fit with the natural order of things. And it just makes it hard to comprehend. And even as a child, it was hard for him to comprehend it. So even a possible memory of it was just too much. And he knew that it just wasn't possible. I just think it's just so much who his character was, regardless of what he did or didn't remember as the adult getting the call. He just knew that it wouldn't be mentally possible for him to do this.
Yeah, completely fair. And I respect that as well. With that, also, that scene, it kind of sends a shockwave through the rest of the group, Luke, like you were talking about, how Bill had to control Stan, because basically then it hit Eddie, then it hit Beverly, then it hit Ben. And they were all like, wait, we can't be in here. We can't, this isn't right. And so Bill, had to corral Stan to get everybody else back in line. So almost to the mental point of Stan is, I shouldn't say the guidepost, but his emotional reactions guided the rest of the group starting off until Bill was able to corral him.
And I think any of them would be that. But in that moment, that sense of just unraveling, he was like a lightning rod for it, that as soon as he had it, it would spread to everybody else. But I think that these kids in general have that for any emotion that they have. Like, they always talk about how they laughed all the time. Well, that's because they're just like, one person laughs, they yawn, and everybody catches. I think this is, one person gets freaked out, it just catches and spreads.
Yeah, no, fear is that way. I mean, that's how it works. And it works that way with animals too. Hey, the flock of birds, one bird senses fear, the entire flock takes off, and it's a very natural thing, and it bleeds through, especially with a tight-knit group like this. And luckily here, I mean, and the scene that they were in was pretty neat. So it's talking about the corridor that they're walking down, right? Mm-hmm. And it says, abruptly, the corridor seemed to elongate. The ceiling rose and then began to diminish above them like some weird rocket. The doors grew with the ceiling pulled up like taffy. The faces of the elves grew and became alien, their eyes bleeding black holes. And then Stan starts shrieking, and he's saying, Bill's like, it's not real. And Stan says, it is. Like, good comeback. It's real. You know it is. God, I'm going crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. And then Bill kind of pulls him back, and he jumps up and punches the ceiling, right? And some of the plaster falls down, and it, like, the whole room, the whole corridor just collapses back into normalcy again. And it was kind of the piercing the veil of this fear that they were all living through. And it wasn't the first time that I had a couple mental references back to walking through the Department of Mysteries in Harry Potter. I don't know if you guys got that feeling at all for when they had the funhouse thing going on. Reminded me of these spinning doors of, hey, it's going to be really easy to get lost, so we need to keep our heads on straight and have a plan. And so I just got multiple things of like, hey, we're going into this dark, dangerous place. We need to stay together and we need to keep our heads about us, or else we're going to lose just to the house.
Right.
Yeah. And kind of going to jump back a little bit to the start of this section. I just wanted to give a shout out to Ben. I feel bad for him that, of course, he gets stuck in the window with his ass hanging right in front of Beverly's face. Again, a little bit of levity, but it still makes you kind of like, you feel for the guy. Mike calling out the moose blower, because tactics that Pennywise is using. He's trying to use any kind of thing. And also, right before that scene was Ben was kind of standing in the dining hall or dining room, and everybody else seemed like they were miles away, like half a mile away, when he kind of got stuck in one of his train of thoughts kind of thing, and had to run up, and the house just was bigger.
And do you know that in that moment, he heard Pennywise's voice in his head in that mental radio? Can he do that?
It was as a grown-up that he was hearing that, right?
No.
I thought it was...
Richie heard him in his head during Richie's walk. Actually, they all did. Yeah, during the walks, we started hearing them in the head, like in the library, when he was like talking to him in the library, and Ben's like, and he realizes I can't shout out or people are going to think I'm insane. Go ahead, Melissa.
So when they're in the house, they're in the room that had been a parlor, right? It's the one that's Ben's about to get lost from the group in. And he hears, oh, but that was outside. So sorry, it says, like the cellar, this room seemed much too big to Ben, almost as long as a freight car, much too long for a house as small as this one had appeared from the outside. Oh, but that's from the outside. A new voice spoke inside his mind. It was a jocular, squealing voice, and Ben realized with sudden certainty that he was hearing Pennywise itself. Pennywise was speaking to him on some crazy mental radio. Outside, things always look smaller than they really are, don't you think? Don't they, Ben? Go away, he whispered. Richie turned to look at him, his face still strained and pale. You say something? Ben shook his head, and the voice was gone.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like Luke said, as adults, we do know he can do that, because he did it with Henry Bowers, he did it with pretty much all the losers on their walks.
Right, so I forgot about that.
But yeah, as a kid, imagine that. So that could be also why, as an adult now, it's not, I mean, yeah, they're freaking out, but they're not complete, breakdown, because Ben at least had that experience as a kid to hear it. Now,
and so right before that is why I was thinking that he had heard that in Grown Up, like in the middle of this chapter, because it jumps back and forth a bit. And this short section right before that is talking about the woman on the cover so it says, in the other corner, Wet and Swollen was a digest-sized girly book. The woman on the cover was bent over a chair with her skirt in the back to show the tops of her fishnet hose and black panties. This picture did not look particularly sexy to Ben, nor did it embarrass him that Beverly had also glanced at it. Moisture had yellowed the woman's skin and pumped the cover in ripples that became wrinkles on her face. Her salacious gaze had become the leer of a dead whore. Years later, as Ben recounted this story, Bev suddenly cried out, startling all of them. They were not so much listening to the story as reliving it. It was her, Bev yelled. It was Mrs. Kirsch. It was her. So, and then as Ben looked, the young old crone on the girly book winked at him. She wiggled her fanny in an obscene come on. So that's where, as the story connects back and forth, they're all in both scenes simultaneously. And the reference to Mrs. Kirsch was really awesome. I had very much a kind of shout out to, I know we talked about whenever she was in the chapter that she had with Bev, like Baba Yaga, kind of a woods witch. But this time, for some reason, I got more of a feeling of Grendel and Grendel's mother from Beowulf, the monster in the lake. And I feel like Mrs. Kirsch is Pennywise's mom in some ways, and even though it was reversed, I think she said that
daughter. Mm-hmm.
But I just had some connections to that, which maybe were not intentional. Maybe that's my own things, but it was just kind of a neat reference back, and the simultaneous story reliving aspect of it, I thought was really, really neat.
No, absolutely great. I actually had that same exact note, so I'm glad you went through that because, yeah, you did a lot better than I was. I did have a shout out. Melissa, I saw your other note that you look like you cut out, but I wanted to give King a shout out for properly calling it a Norway rat. Came running out and scurried, trying to entice Beverly to shoot it because most people would just call it a rat. The correct terminology is Norway rat, and so I just wanted to say, good job, Stephen, for getting that right. But then another kind of note a little bit later on, we talked about the scene with Stan and everything, and Bill asked him, "Are you a man or are you a mouse?" And he's like, "Shit, I must be a man because mice don't shit their pants." I said, "Nope, but mice shit everywhere they eat." Just or a word to the wise, folks. Anyway, so it was just kind of two things that stuck out to me because that's what I deal with on a daily basis. So,
and with that joke, they all start laughing, and that really does solidify. I think solidifies them taking control back in the house because things were almost lost there, and because they were able to crack a joke and get through it. We talked about the shapeshifter things earlier, and it's if you can laugh at it, you're going to end up being better.
Exactly. So, anything else on the first half of the house?
A lot of action.
A lot more coming up in this next section here. So the next section, they make their way to the bathroom. They find the toilet to have been demolished and a rumbling coming from the pipes. They are introduced face to face, all seven of them, to none other than Pennywise in wolf form. I'll let you guys kind of go from there. Want to go forward?
Well, I like that they finally realized that it's using the pipes and drains. I feel like we've sort of known this all along, but that was the first time I think it was the first time that there was like, okay, we're going to spell it out for you. It travels in the pipes. If you haven't caught it now, here it is. See the pipes? That's what it's using.
Yeah, it was a bit on the nose, because I feel like it's also been pretty well spelled out, and maybe that's tough because certain characters I think had figured it out, but no one really talked about it out loud. I guess Ben, I think he's had a pretty good handle on things are going on in the pipes or in the industrial. The Morlock holes, and I don't know. Maybe it just took someone actually saying it for the group to finally realize it. But yeah, let's just say it out loud for anyone who's missed it.
I mean, in King's defense, if I had read this like I normally read this, I would have read those 700 pages in about 4 hours. So it's possible that
I doubt it. After chapter 1, pretty clear.
I mean, it could just be hanging out in the sewer. I mean, okay,
it became a pattern pretty quick.
There was a 3-year-old who was murdered by a toilet, and then there was the talking sink with the spit blood. So, it's not subtle, that's for sure. But just in case, pipes.
Yeah, can confirm.
Very much Hermione Granger holding the piece of paper that just has one word written on it, and it's pipes. Right there. This is it. Petrified or not.
Yeah, and I think, Melissa, my note kind of ties into your next one. Richie is the one that kind of called out it being the werewolf. He sees it, quote unquote, sees it first, and he calls it out, and it solidifies himself as that.
Yes. I think the line before that is more important.
Yes, and I misspoke. Yours was before mine, and I apologize.
So I'm going to just sort of read it here. And it says, something exploded out of the drain pipe. Ben, trying to recall that first confrontation later, could only remember a silvery orange shifting shape. It was not ghostly, it was solid, and he sensed some other shape, some real and ultimate shape behind it, but his eyes could not grasp what he was seeing, not precisely. This is proof that it really is a boggart, that it needs to take on the idea of what's coming. And it even says when we get it, first of all, I love that its thoughts always happen in italics. That makes me happy. And it said it was in its own form, whatever that might be. It would take some shape from their minds when it got there. Man, was this chapter all about blatantly proving all of the things we'd assumed? It spelled it out. It will take its own form from their minds when it gets there. I don't know. Important pieces of information. All kinds of answers, sort of.
I felt pretty good reading this chapter. I was like, oh, confirmation. Bing. Confirmation. Bing. Yes, maybe there were times where you guys led me on certain things, but each time it would come up, it's like, oh, that's just slightly different, but I can, that makes sense. So not too surprised with what we're getting here. Surprised in the way it comes out. I think it's a pretty strong, exciting, action-packed scene for sure. The portion that stands out to me most is even another line or two right before the one that you read, and it was essentially Ben being able to visualize Pennywise coming through the pipe before it even got there. And as far as I could tell, it was only Ben that could sense it. And maybe I missed a reference, but it says Ben looked in the pipe. It was about 3 feet in diameter, and then it goes on, and then it says he did not see it with his physical eyes, not at first, but with one buried deep in his mind. It was rushing toward them, moving at express train speed, filling the throat of the dark pipe from side to side. And so then that's right before it bursts out, and he can see these, the black catacombs under the earth, and the feral yellowish green coming. It was coming. Really, really cool way to say, like, oh shit, guess what, guys? Buckle up. Like, we knew we were getting into, kind of. We were aware that this was a strong possibility, but here it is. And luckily, we can have the chance of taking the surprise out of it. And I think that was potentially involvement with the turtle, who I think even right before they get they go through the door, it mentions that they could finally feel the two opposing forces really coming to a head. I believe that's where it says that, if you remember that line.
Yeah, I think you're close to that. It's because it was right. I was wrong when I said the moose bloater. The moose bloater is actually in this section here. But there's bathtub standing.
I got it. It says, they went down to the door at the end of the hall, and as Ben watched Bill hook his finger in the hole where the doorknob shaft had been, he understood that this is where it was going to end. There would be no trick behind this door. The smell was worse now, and that thundery feeling of two opposing powers swirling around them was much stronger.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the one.
Yeah. So, kind of we went backwards on that, but that's okay. It worked out well. So the werewolf comes out and knocks couple people back, and Beverly pulls out has the bullseye in hand, goes and has it in the cup as well, the first ball bearing already in there, but drops it. As it's falling, Mike quick-handedly catches it out of midair, hands it back to her, and smooth as silk, shoot it, baby. Shoot it and kill it. Just smooth as hell for an 11-year-old. It was like, damn straight, dude. All right. That was a cool, way to encourage her, and it kind of helped steady her a bit, but she still ended up missing the first shot on it. And I'm not going to lie, I'm going to do something here really quick. Let me pull this up over here. I would absolutely kill to have this jacket.
Oh.
The Derry High School Killing Team, number 13, Pennywise. I read that, and I'm like, oh my god, I want that. And no one sells it. This is just a concept, thing that I found online, but I thought it was so cool. I'm like, yes, absolutely. And that's what the teenage werewolf is wearing.
So speaking of the teenage werewolf goes for Beverly. Ben pulls Beverly out of the way. Werewolf goes for Bill. Ben pulls Bill out of the way. Like, okay, and then so finally then the werewolf goes after Bill. But like we were talking about this earlier, where like you don't take Ben for the guy who's going to be confrontational and who's going to get into it, but he's like the one doing the things. No, everyone else is kind of just, I mean, I picture them just sort of standing around in shock, but Ben's like, action superhero guy. You move and okay, yeah, then he gets flung into a bathtub, but that gives enough time for Beverly to start shooting. They wouldn't have had that without Ben. So Ben gets my vote for MVP of this section.
Oh, absolutely. Of the chapter, in fairness, but yeah, of the section, absolutely. He blocks the path of the werewolf to Bev, like after he pushes Bill away, pulls her out of the way, and he takes him on one-on-one, and he's like, I'm a big boy, but even I didn't have enough power to push him, and he gets a stab or a cut to the gut, thrown in the bathtub, knocked silly, and Luke, why don't you take us from there?
So Bev takes her first shot and misses wide by a foot, and I wasn't too surprised. You can never hit. When you have two shots, you're never narratively gonna hit on your first one. Like, you have to have that. And I did think the thing that was more interesting to me than her missing was it not hooking back in like it seemed to have when they were practicing, right?
It was with Patrick Hockstetter.
That's right. So something, the turtle, whatever it is, seemed to guide it onto target. Like, why hesitate here? Hey, like, why don't you help out? Like, come on, maybe it's gonna take 2 shots, like, to do this thing, which clearly takes more than just the one that we get to. But the hell, turtle, come on, expect better from you.
Yeah, and right as Ben's kind of taking on the werewolf, I think it's when he's in the bathtub, we get shoot at Beverly. Richie screamed, "Beep beep, Richie!" She heard herself reply from roughly 1,000 miles away. The werewolf's head was suddenly there, in the wishbone. She covered one of its green eyes with the cup and released. There was no shake in either hand. She fired as smoothly and as naturally as she had fired at the cans of the dump the day they'd all taken turns to see who was best. And because it was the second time, because even right before that, Ben had the thought of, if you or it was right after this, Ben has a thought of, if you miss, we're all dead. We're all, that's it. And she was cool and calm. And the reason I like that section is because right in this section is where we get the jumping perspectives between Ben and Bev. It's back and forth, back and forth. And if you're not paying attention, it's kind of hard to catch sometimes. Until we started doing this podcast, I wouldn't have ever caught the actual jumping perspective stuff. But I really did like this section for that aspect where it's going between Ben and Bev taking on Pennywise.
Is it just a little further on that she falls into the hunter's mindset where everything quiets down around her? And
that's in this part, yeah.
That's right when she takes the actual shot that hits, right?
It was right. That was actually right before the line I read.
I just didn't see it, but I just thought that was another cool line of, because you always see that in movies, like, oh, the sniper takes a slow breath and everything quiets down and slows down around her, and it was just another nice thing to work in here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it was a couple paragraphs before, but Eddie howling at Beverly to shoot it, but Beverly did not. This was her only chance. That did not matter. She intended that it'd be the only one she would need. A clear coldness she never saw again in her life fell over her sight. In it, everything stood out and forward. Never again would she see the 3 dimensions of reality so clearly defined. She possessed every color, every angle, every distance. Fear departed. She felt the hunter's simple lust of certainty and oncoming consumption. Her pulse slowed, her hysterical trembling grip in which she had been holding the bullseye loosened, then firmed and became natural. She drew in a deep breath. It seemed that her lungs would never fill completely. Dimly, faintly, she had heard popping sounds. Didn't matter, whatever they were. She tracked left, waiting for the werewolf's improbable head to fall with cool perfection into the wishbone beyond the extended V of the drawn-back sling.
Nice job.
So she hits it, and it hits it right dead center of the snout kind of thing, and starts gushing blood, like this black porous blood that you don't really attribute to. But it doesn't stop. It doesn't kill it. It just wounds it. She draws back again, and we switch back to Penn's perspective, and he hears Bill yelling, "Shoot it, Bev, kill it!" And Mike and Eddie and everybody saying, "Kill it, kill it, kill it!" And he's like, "She's out of ammo. She can't kill it." And then it dawns on him, I have to believe she can kill it. And as soon as he says it, that's when Bill steps up, says, fucked up by going after my brother first.
Yeah, I thought it was another pretty cool scene that was a big confirmation on if they can believe it, that it's possible, then, because Pennywise doesn't know that she doesn't have another shot. And the second they waver as a group, he gets all the power back. I mean, he basks in uncertainty. He basks in fear. And as soon as they give him that power back, which we're going to talk about here very shortly, then all is lost at that point. And luckily, Ben kind of realizes that and is able to kind of bring it back in when everyone else was already there. And yeah, then Bill kind of steps up and does his part that I think finalizes this interaction with Pennywise.
Do you notice Stan doesn't say anything?
Yes, I did notice that.
Richie says it first, then Mike, then Eddie, then Bill. Beverly's the one standing there holding it, and then Ben jumps in. That's 6. It's just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I actually hadn't caught that, so nice. Yeah,
I just have been sitting here rereading the section while you guys were talking. So
I was overall very, very surprised with the lack of participation from a few people, is all I'll say. And I think that flip it on the reverse side, yeah, we notice Ben doing like all sorts of things. We know Bev doing all sorts of things. Bill does all sorts of things.
Even Mike's got a couple of key moments. Not many, but like at least
My
his
point-
name is mentioned.
Not really that much. Eddie doesn't do really that much. Stan does almost nothing. Like
Richie does almost nothing.
Mike at least catches the dropped
Yeah.
thing. That's what I'm saying. Like,
right, it wasn't nothing, but comparatively,
I would say Mike was in the middle. There were 3 overachievers, 3 underachievers, and then there's Mike.
Mhm.
The best of the underachievers.
That's how I
That's
view
Just,
it.
fair.
just a little better than the worst.
That's how I view it.
I'm with you. I agree. And part of it is, how do you write for 7 people like that?
Oh yeah.
And I just don't think like that could have been done a little differently. Not that I'm going to critique Stephen King's writing ever, because I don't. That would be stupid on my part.
And truly, I'd probably be complaining of like, wow, how heavy-handed and perfect that each one had like a part to
Right.
play.
Yeah.
I would have been
Right.
bitching about that. So I'm really not complaining. It was just something I noticed that right along with your Stan not saying it, I was like, man, some people didn't do a whole lot. Like, come on.
Yeah. So my only other note to this section was once Pennywise jumps down the drain, I'll kill you all. I'll kill you all. The house kind of snaps back to reality. Luke.
Oops, there goes gravity.
Yep, thank you. But it's one of those that, and Ben, realizes in some strange way it was shrinking, coming back to its normal size. Whatever magic it had used to make the house in 29 Needwell Street seem bigger was now withdrawn. The house snapped back like an elastic. It was only a house now, smelling damp and a little rotten. An unfurnished house with winos and hobos sometimes came to drink and talk and sleep out of the rain. So we know Pennywise was wounded, at least because the house lost its magic. I would think it's a little of both. He retreated because he was wounded, he was hurt, and he was scared. So the house lost the magic for that aspect. But maybe they wounded it enough to where he lost enough magic to where he couldn't control the house either.
I think that, along with Pennywise believing that they had the capability of actually killing him, I think the combination of that is very important.
Same.
All right. So our next section, section 10, we get basically the aftermath of Pennywise taking off, and Ben's getting helped up out of the tub and they're checking out his injuries. Beverly's a little upset because her shirt is torn and kind of ripped off and everything, and then people start to notice stuff. So who would like to take this one? Okay.
Ben seeing the proprietary situation with between Bill and Bev was interesting. And I think this is right where, Ben kind of realizes even more so that, wow, Bill saw her for the first time the same way I've been seeing her for all summer or longer, or however long he's been noticing her. And Ben kind of in his head knows that he's not really going to have a chance if it really comes down to it. But even then, I think even further it goes on to, him saying, well, just let me love you. Like, please just don't take that from me, regardless of, if you're going to end up with Bill or anything. Just don't disallow me from having the feelings that I have for you.
Exactly. And my only note to that is Ben is the reason her shirt was actually torn, because in the previous scene when he pulls her back, he pulls her by the shirt. Yes, he pulls her by the shirt and he pops the seams.
It was when she was
taking the deep breath and about to shoot. It says there was dimly, faintly, she heard popping sounds. Those were the
said,
buttons.
I'll worry about that later.
Oh, so if you read when Ben pulled her back, he pulled her by her blouse and the seams under her arms ripped.
Yeah, but it's down the front that's open.
Okay. Then I'm
buttons popped off, and so she's trying to close it. It says, and it even says at the very beginning of the section, the dim popping sounds had been the buttons on her blouse. Yeah, no, this was because of her. She did this.
Gotcha. Okay, then never mind. Well, it just kind of goes in, and I apologize then I misread that, and so, but it goes. Unfortunately, it's now the reason why Bill has noticed her as a girl, kind of thing.
I like that she calls it out. She's like, "Dude, I can't help it. Like, it is
Sorry
what it
that
is.
I'm getting heavy up top."
Like, kind of like, let it go, dude. It is what it is."
Yeah.
I feel like if our other sister would be here, she would have similar reactions. Like, I can't help that. It doesn't make me not one of the guys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Very much agree.
And then again, we talk about we see the aftermaths of Ben's injuries, where it was a deep laceration into his stomach, but nothing.
I just think it's interesting that he needed more courage to actually look at his own wound than to basically save everybody else's ass.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because it's one of those, it's the adrenaline dump. When you're in there, in that, you don't give a shit. It's going, headlong, but then all of a sudden the adrenaline's gone, and now your self-consciousness is right back, and I don't want to lift my shirt up, and also I just don't want to see what I'm actually dying. So, all right. So the next section, they head back to the clubhouse, and we get some interesting dynamics and thoughts from Ben on power and how that falls into the group and life. My first note, really quick, is from Richie. He just keeps going back to the same well for jokes. This section, he's like, "We'll kill you slow." It's like you can do better material than that, Richie. Come on. All right.
When you have a catchphrase, you stick to it.
And he does that actually, because he's done like there was one section he kept doing the badges thing. Couple, when he finds that one thing, he'll hammer it home.
And I think that's what they're trying to say with that is, yeah, he has some hits here and there, and guess what? He's not as skilled or as seasoned of a comedian at this point, so he's just going to keep going with the thing that he believes is going to have the guaranteed laugh at times.
Do you want to go to your next, your thoughts of Ben's thoughts there, Luke?
I want to kick it to Melissa because I think she has some ideas on that I'll just.
Oh, Benji just said that it was really all about the idea of power. That's all.
And it really is, and I wanted to go through and highlight like parts of this that were like, yeah, that's exactly what it was like the whole section though, because it just keeps coming back to, where does power lie? It lies where you believe it does, and I think that holds true here. And one line specifically that Ben says is, to see the shape was to see the secret, because he's focusing on, if I can just remember back to what it looked like before it transformed into the werewolf, that's going to be telling, because then I'll know its secrets, and that's a power that he would have over Pennywise. Just like love is a certain power from one person to another, just like Bev has that over him, just like Bill has that over Bev, and power in this case was an atomic bomb, or it's a crying baby. Everything is different transfers of power, and it just depends on which side of that modulation you find yourself on. And for an 11-year-old, this is pretty deep stuff that he's getting into, and I just thought it was really smart from his character, which is not very surprising. But it's just a really strong extended metaphor that he goes for, and I think it holds true for the entire idea of belief that we've been talking about in this chapter as well, of how if they can maintain the power of belief in themselves and their capabilities, then they do hold that power over Pennywise.
Yeah, no, very well said, and that's why I was letting you guys who are way smarter than me expound upon that. So my only other note to this section was when Beverly asked, "Are your parents going to be mad when you come home without a shirt?" or whatever. It's like, no, they hardly noticed it anyway. And unfortunately, we found out earlier that that's absolutely true, based on Bill's mother's reaction to her. She had a line of, there was something of Bill should try to, it was something, I can't remember exactly where it was, but she kind of called her son like her confusing son, where she's like, I don't know how to interact. Like, it's just a small line, but she's like, she doesn't know how to even interact with her son anymore. And I think that's more on her than it is on her son becoming different. It's on parents change, but she doesn't realize that. She thinks Bill's become different.
I agree with that, because like you started talking, I was like, well, I don't know, because there are times where I can't talk to my teenager because I have no idea what's going on, and I've tried, and then but I'm like, but this is an 11-year-old kid who has been neglected, basically. So I agree with you completely. This is because she can't get out of her morning funk depression because of Georgie, and that's what's changing their relationship, not anything that's happening with Bill. So yeah. I think you're right.
And the line I was reading or thinking of, but she felt relieved when the children were gone and her own puzzling, stuttering son had gone to his room and turned off the light. It was that relief of, I don't have to deal with him, I
will say at the end of this section, I was really interested that they went on a mad Parcheesi jag. I think that sounds like, these are the things that makes me realize that, and I always wonder, because so much of what we get from this group of 7 supposed, best friends and lifelong whatever, even though they hadn't seen each other, they were so connected, was fighting this bad guy. It's like, but at what point were you friends? And then we throw in what Luke had been wondering for the first 500 some odd pages of, where's Mike? What's
Mike up to?
Like, how does he fit? Because at this point, he's been in a rock fight and hung out with some pictures and then did this thing. So it's nice to see that they actually spend some time being kids and being friends, and there's time for that friendship to deepen and develop and just be kids in there. So I like that sort of nod to the childhood piece of all of this is still ongoing and ever present, even amongst the, mad, evil, crazy guy who lives in the drains and changes shapes and eats arms.
Right, but one thing that I thought interesting on that Parcheesi Jag is because of a 4-day rainstorm. You get that much rain, it's concerning, especially in Derry. It just means something bad might not be too far behind.
That's true.
So, all right, so the last section is section 12. Nothing much happened for the next 2 weeks.
That's pretty short.
One of my favorite things that has been done in this book.
And I literally read the entire section right there.
That was the whole section. I loved it.
Yeah.
Very much reminded me of Lemony Snicket of, and then they fell down in an elevator. And it's just 2 pages of black. It's just being silly on the page, and I like it.
Yeah. And the thing is with that, if you think back to it, they start, if we go back 7, 8 chapters, so we're talking a couple months for us, but they start talking about there's still a lot of time that I don't remember. And even Mike was like, there's still 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks that I don't recall. I don't think it's these 2 weeks that he's talking about. I believe it might be after this boring period, though. All right, so that wraps us up on our recap and everything. We got a couple questions for the new reader. I will start with mine. Luke, what would be the next shape it might take to relieve the silver of its power, as Bennett talked about?
Oh, the Silver Surfer, I'd imagine. I don't know. That or Goblin Steel. It, only takes in that which makes it stronger.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
I was going to say, hence my overuse of imbibing, because...
Or maybe like Flavor Flav?
All right, Melissa, what are your questions?
All right, so question 1 is for everybody. What was the movie I quoted at the beginning when I said, seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing?
And he says, your favorite Christmas movie?
Pretty much.
See, I know, I would say, based off that clue, your favorite Christmas movie is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. But
you know me better than this.
Okay, well, that's your husband.
Yes, that's true. It's not me.
Okay.
He's only allowed to watch that when I'm not home.
All right, Luke.
I would say The Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Very good.
I truly didn't wait. I didn't look it up. I was just like, that's when it makes most sense because it's all about belief in it. It's the whole theme of that movie too. Like most Christmas movies.
It's not, you don't believe it because you see it. It's when you believe it that allows you to see it. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, all right, my last question. This is for Luke specifically. Are you ready? So endeth part 4, 1958. Are we done with the childhood stuff? And what happens now?
I believe that we are not, because they have not gone down into the belly of the beast, which I think they have. It's one thing to find the door or a way to get in. They know several other ways to get down there, but I absolutely think they are going to go down to see Pennywise's home base, if you will. Infiltrate.
Okay. As children?
As children.
Okay.
Because I think we have more kids that we know that get killed, and I think it says that they were down in the pipes at some point. But
okay.
All right. So next section, which is kind of calling it thoughts or suspicions from the new reader, or speculations from the new reader.
Yeah, I don't have anything written, but I did. It was nice having a lot of confirmations of things that we've been chatting about with the Boggart-isms, with the belief, and I continually think back, even outside of this book, to like the belief in the magic makes it possible. There was that whole thing of if it just takes believing in the magic to make it real, then who's to say it's not real all the time, because most people just choose not to. I forget which chapter that line came in, but it's one that stuck with me, and it always makes me think back to movies like Christmas movies of believing in the Christmas spirit and things like that. And a lot of the times it's, hey, the line that Melissa keeps bringing up, it's not seeing it as believing it is. You have to actually be a believer already to even have it be possible, which a lot of essentially is faith, right? I'm not going to go down that path, but I understand there's a lot of similarities with that, and this is just a
So
narrative.
it's kind of like what Hagrid says about all muggles, or is it Hagrid or is it Arthur Weasley? I don't remember. Who says all muggles, they'll come up with any story to explain away magic.
That's Hagrid, book 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's one thing to see something, but if you're going to constantly choose not to because you don't believe it, which is why all of these people either don't see the blood in the bathroom or they do, but it's always been there. So it's okay. Like that's just always been there. And guess what? We can't stop it. All we can do is unfortunately utilize it sometimes and just realize that's part of where we live. Part of the magic of Derry. Come join us. You'll float too.
We're going to move into our favorite things. I'm going to start with mine. I'm just Ben. The whole chapter, Ben just rocked it from his attention to work, just being in that mindset of it just has to be done right. But I don't need to measure because I'm going to do it right. It's just going to be done. Being the hero, but also being heartbroken as reality hits him of what he sees Bill seeing, kind of thing. The whole chapter, I know it's a Ben chapter, but he just was awesome. Luke, what was your favorite thing?
The entire discussion of power and the belief that goes along with that, I thought was really, really neat. It always comes back to power. I love Beverly Marsh, and she has power over me. She loves Bill Denborough, and so he has power over her. And then they talk about how that could be changing, and then they have power over each other. And he's like, well, except for maybe little kids and babies. And then he thought and realized even kids and babies had a certain power. They could cry until you had to do something to shut them up. And then Bill kind of says, hey, what are you doing? Because he's just sitting there, literally standing there thinking for the second time this chapter. And people notice it, like, hey, did we lose you? Where are you, Ben? And Ben says, I was wondering where that power came from, talking about the slugs themselves. And Bill began and then shut his mouth. A thoughtful expression drifted over his face. It continues on. Ben looked at Bill and saw that he hadn't joined in the laughter. The thoughtful expression was still on his face, and Ben knew you would have to call his name 2 or 3 times before he would answer. And he knew what Bill was thinking about. So Ben has planted that same seed of understanding what power is in Bill's head, and I think those two together are always a strong mental capacity team.
Sure, absolutely. And Melissa, what is your favorite thing?
No ammo left, Ben thought incoherently. We're slugged out. What are you talking about? Kill it. But he looked at Beverly and understood. If his heart had never been hers before that moment, it would have flown to her then. She had pulled the sling back again. Her fingers were closed over the cup, hiding its emptiness. The uncertainty left the creature's eyes. It believed. That idea that first of all, that idea of having belief, that belief is power, but also that idea that they could convince it of something and it believed in them and believed they had the power to hurt it. That's awesome. That idea that it is scared of them, because that's a really good piece of information that they need.
Exactly. No, definitely. That wraps us up. Find us on Twitter at floatsdownhere. Send us a digital balloon at floatsdownhere@gmail.com. Find all of our shows at thepodcastthat.com. Make sure you subscribe and rate us on iTunes.
This show and all of our shows at thepodcastthat.com are produced with the love and support of our wonderful Imaginary Legion patrons. Learn more about our reward tiers and join now at patreon.com/stayimaginary.
Next time we'll be covering Derry, the 4th interlude. You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.